Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a few tasks in Excel using the full Windows version of Excel. Okay, so here I have a data file open, and this is some data that I collected from my own email over a 2-day period. So I've got the time I received it, the location of where it is now, either my inbox or archive, the type of email that it was in terms of whether it was just for me, a mass email, an automated email, the topic in a few different categories, whether I replied, the sender, thread length, that means how many emails are in the email chain as far as replies back and forth, and then the number of words in that particular email. So the first thing I want to show you how to do is make a copy of a sheet and then rename the sheet. So this is raw data, which means I haven't cleaned it yet. So I'm going to go down to the raw data tab here at the bottom, and I'm going to right click on that. And then I'm going to select move or copy. And then I'm going to check the create a copy box. I'll hit OK. So now I've got two copies. The second one is just called raw data 2. To rename that one, I'm just going to double click on the name and then I'll type whatever I want. So clean data, and then I'll hit enter. Okay, so these are two sheets. They are still in the same file though. The file name is up here at the top. You can have as many sheets as you want in the same file. Okay, the next task is to resize the column widths so that I can see everything. So if I want to do one column at a time, I can just hover between the two column names, like between C and D, until the mouse turns into the black left-right arrow, and then I can click and drag that. But that's a little bit slow, so if you want to do them all at the same time, you can click on the triangle between column A and row 1 right there. And then you've selected everything in the entire sheet, and then go and hover between two column titles again, like between A and B, till you get the black left-right arrow, and then double click, boop, boop, and then it automatically sizes everything so that you can see it. All right, the next task is going to be to clean the data by standardizing entries. So if we look, it looks like I made some typos. For example, in cell A10, it looks like I made a typo. I put a double quote instead of a colon. So I would just retype that one, replace with a colon, and then I'll capitalize my PM. It looks like there's a couple other mistakes. 13:48, that's like 24-hour time, so that would be 1:48 p.m. Let's see, are there any others that are bad in this column? Looks okay, the rest of them. In the next column, it looks like, everything's spelled correctly and they're all uncapitalized, so I guess I'll just keep with the uncapitalized version. Now in the next column, column C, I'm seeing some different capitalizations. And do I see any misspellings? I don't think there's any misspelling, but there's a lot of different capitalizations. So I think what I'd like to do is just replace all the capital letters with lowercase letters. So I'm going to highlight the ones where I want to do the replacement, and then I'm going to go to the Home tab right up here, and then go to Find and Select here, and then I'm going to do Replace. Actually, I wonder if there's a better way to do this. Well, this is the only way I know of so far. So I'll do replace, and then basically there's a whole bunch of capital J's in the word just that I want to replace with a lowercase j. Now, if you want to change the case, you have to make sure to click this button right here that says match case. And then I'm just going to do replace all. Okay, so all the J's went to lowercase. And let's see, were there any other letters that were capitalized differently? It looks like everything is lowercase from there. So that should be everything for that column. It looks like I have the same issue of upper and lowercase in the next column. So I'll go ahead and, you know what, actually, it looks like I have almost the same issue in all three of those columns with capitalization. So I'm going to select all three of those. And I'm going to do Find and Select and then Replace. And I'll just do a bunch of these at once. So I want all my uppercase S's to go to lowercase. Then I'll put uppercase in the Find What box, lowercase s in the Replace What box. Make sure match case is selected, and then I'll do replace all. Okay, so all my s's went to lowercase. What were the other problem letters? Looks like the F in faculty, I want those to go to lowercase. Replace all. Okay. Any other letters? I think the Y and the word yes. So I'll do Y's. Oops, that's an E. Okay, and then I see IT is still capitalized, but that's an abbreviation, so I think that one looks okay. I'll leave that one like it is. All right. Do we see any other misspellings or non-standard entries? I see this one staff entry here is misspelled, so I'll just retype that one. And the rest of them look okay to me, although it can be hard to spot. One thing that can also happen that you may never see is if there's a space at the end of a word, which can happen sometimes depending on where you import the data from. I hope that's not here, but we might find out later if it is when we go to make some graphs. All right, so the numbers in these last two columns, let me just see if they look kind of like reasonable. Yeah, I don't see any obvious typos. The number of words can be short or long in an email, so those numbers look okay to me. Even if there was a 1,000,000-word email, I guess it could technically still be possible. So I'm not sure what I would consider a typo, maybe a negative number of words. All right, so I think we have cleaned everything. The next thing I want to do is sort by a particular column. So when you want to sort, keep in mind that each row corresponds to one email. So when you sort, you need to sort the entire data set at once, not just one column. Because if you sort columns and you let the entries in each row get moved away from each other, then those rows aren't going to correspond to an email anymore, if you guys see what I mean. So what you want to do is highlight the entire data set before you sort it. So I'm going to select everything from A1 down to H26. You can also just select the columns across the top. And if your data set is the only thing you have in the sheet, you could select this triangle over here to do the whole sheet. I guess I'll just select the columns like this. Okay, so now to sort, we're going to go to the Data tab and then Sort. Okay, and you get the pop-up menu here. Sort by, make sure that you check this box that says my data has headers, because that way you won't sort the headers. If you sort the headers, then they aren't headers anymore, so they look bad. So make sure that's checked, and then do sort by, and you can sort by whatever you want. In this case, I will do num words, so the number of words in the email, and the order, usually just leave it on the default unless otherwise specified, which is smallest to largest. Okay, so now you can see that column H is sorted, but all of the other columns entries moved around as well to keep each row's data together. All right. So the next thing I want to show you is how to make a new calculated column. So what I want to do is basically, this is the number of emails in each chain, and this is the number of words in the particular email that I received during that 2-day period. So I want to estimate how many words are in the entire email chain by multiplying these numbers together in those two columns. So basically, if I had a 3-email chain and one of the emails had 6 words, I would estimate that they all probably had about 6 words. And so I would estimate there were 18 words in total. So that's what I'm going to do in, I'm going to do it in column J. So in cell J1, I'm going to type the title here, estimated words in thread, and I'll just go ahead and make the column a little wider so I can read that. Okay, and then I'm going to write a formula that multiplies together these two cells for the first entry here. So in J2, I'm going to type equals to start my formula, and then I'm going to click on the 3, which is G2, and then I'm going to do the asterisk for times, and then I'm going to click on the 6, which is H2, and then I just press enter, and I got 18, and that looks right for the first entry. Now that you have one entry done, click on that cell again where you wrote the formula, and then hover over the tiny little green box in the bottom right-hand corner until your mouse turns into the black plus sign. Now, if you double click, because we actually did this in a column that wasn't right next to the previous column, it won't do anything when you double click. So instead you can click and drag down, and that just lets you decide yourself how far you want to go down. So I'm going to go down to row 26, and yeah, all the entries should now be in there. So just make sure they don't look too crazy, like they're not negative or anything. They look fine to me. All right, so that is how you make a calculated column. Now I want to show you how to do min, max, range, mean, and median of one of these numerical columns. So let's try doing it with column H. I want to find the minimum value, the maximum, the range, the mean, and the median. And I guess I'm just gonna put these maybe over here in column L. So I'm gonna just put a title on here, num words, colon, and then I'm gonna put the labels of min, max, range, mean, and median, just so I know what I calculated. And then I'll make those bold as well. I just hit Control B to make them bold, but you can also go back to the Home tab and then just click the bold button right there. Not a big deal. Okay, so in M2, next to the min label, I'm going to use the min formula. So I'm going to type equals min, and then my left parenthesis. And now I'll select all of the num words data. So starting from H2, I click and drag down to H26. Okay. Or you can just type in H2 colon H26. Then I'm going to close parentheses. So here's the formula up here. And I hit enter. Okay, and I got 6, which I think is correct because I had sorted it before and found that 6 was the minimum. For the max, I'm going to do equals max, open parentheses. This time I'll just type it, H2 colon H26. Okay, close parentheses, and I will hit enter. Okay, the next one, the range, that one you're just subtracting the max minus the min. So I have to write my own formula. So I'll do equals. I click on 594, I do minus, click on 6. Okay, so equals M3 minus M2, hit enter. All right, I got 588. Yeah, that's 594 minus 6. Okay, the next one, the mean, the formula is actually called average, not mean. So equals average, open parentheses, H2 colon H26. Okay, so make sure it's highlighting the right range over here when you type that in. Close parentheses, hit enter, 110. Seems like a reasonable average. The numbers went from 6 to 600, so okay, it should be somewhere between there. And then finally for the median, equals median, open parentheses. I'll type H2 through H26 again, close parentheses, hit enter. And again, I got a number between 6 and 594, so that makes sense. All right, so those are the min, max, range, mean, and median, and you can do that for any column that you want. The next thing I want to show you is how to make a multivariable pivot table. So for a pivot table, what I want to do is first select my data again. Now, this time I'm not going to do the entire sheet because if I do that, I'll have this min, max, range, mean, median stuff that I don't really want. So let me instead select just the area where the data I'm actually interested in doing a pivot table is at. So that'd be from A1 down to J26. That's what I'm going to select. And then I will go to Insert. And then you can do either pivot table or you can do the pivot chart. If you do pivot chart, it'll do both a table and a chart at once. If you do the table, then you have to put the chart in a little bit later. So let's do the pivot chart. I'm just going to click on the main button, not on the drop down. Okay, so it's going to give me this pop-up and ask me where is the range of data that I want. If you selected it correctly yourself, then it should be okay. If you just selected like one cell or something, then it might have tried to suggest some range that may or may not be correct. And then new worksheet, we want to make sure that is selected, and then I'm going to hit OK. Let's see, pivot table field name is not valid. What does that mean? I think it doesn't like the fact that I have this blank column in column I. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to delete column I. So I'll click on the I, right click on the I, delete. Okay, and I'm going to try this again. So I'm going to select from A1 down to I26. And now I'm going to try to put the pivot chart in again. So insert tab, pivot chart. I'll just leave these defaults here. Yeah, okay, that was the problem. All right. Okay. So now that I can make a pivot table, I'm going to try putting sender on the rows. So over here in my list of variables, if you can't see your list of variables, your window might be too small. So just maximize your Excel window. Also, if you click off of the pivot table or the pivot chart, like you click on another cell over here, it'll also disappear. So just click back on the chart or on the table. Okay. All right, so I'm going to put sender on my rows. Rows might be called axis on your version of Excel, but it's the same thing. So it's this box down here. So I just click and drag sender down to there. I'm going to put type for the columns. So I'll click and drag type. Oh, I'm sorry. It's like right under my face. Hold on. Let me move my face. Okay, it's over there. All right, so let me undo that. If you want to undo putting things in these boxes, you just click and drag them over to the side. Wait a second. Yeah, over here like that. All right, so I'll do this again. So I want to put sender on the rows. So I click and drag sender down to the rows. And then I want to do type for the columns. So I'll click and drag type down to the columns. Columns might be called legend on your version of Excel. And then you can put either of those two variables for the values. So I'll just put sender for the values. Go. Okay. So basically what it's doing is it's just counting how many people had an entry in sender, and then it's categorizing them by sender on the rows of this table over here. So the sender was either a faculty, a staff, or a student. And then it's categorizing by type on the columns. So type would be an automated email, group email, an email that was just to me, or a mass email. Now I do see an issue right here where I have just to me in two different columns. And I think that means that I didn't clean my data well enough. So let me just check. When I click on this D2 cell and I look at the text of it up above the chart, I don't see any spaces at the end. Well, let me click on the second one, E2. There's no space at the end on that one either. Oh, just to me, just for me. Okay, right. So I should have cleaned those to actually say the same thing, either for or to. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete this. I'm going to start over after cleaning my data a little more. So where are the ones that say just for me? Just for me, just for me. Oh, it's actually hard for me to even read it. Oh, here it is. It's that one right there. I think that's the only one. So I'm just going to copy C10 and paste it onto C11. Okay. All right. So now let me try doing the insert the pivot table again. Okay. So I selected the data, insert, pivot chart, click OK. All right. So let's try this again. Sender under. Oh, see, now it's calling it axis on mine. What the heck? It was clearly said rows before, right? Excel, you're bonkers. Okay, so I'm putting sender under axis. I'm putting type under legend. And I'm going to put sender under values as well. Okay, let me see if the problem is fixed. Yeah, so there's no more just for me. There's just to me. All right, so anyway, so now we have the distribution table. And we also have a chart. If you didn't put in a chart, you can just click somewhere on your table and then go to, let's see, where is it? Pivot table analyze tab and just click pivot chart. Or another way you could do it is just click somewhere on your table. And then I think if you go to insert and then just insert a chart, it'll also put in your pivot chart like that. Okay, so anyway, somehow you get a chart up, and then once you have it up, you can change the type of it. So if you click on the chart and go to design tab, I believe, and then you can click change chart type. You might also be able to do this by right clicking on it. Yeah, you can right click and do change chart type. And then you can do, for example, a stacked column chart. You can do a bar chart and then stack that. Pie chart really only is going to look good for if you have one variable in your table or using two variables, sender and type. So for now, I will do a stacked column. Okay. So looking at this, we can see some interesting results. So for example, I got the most emails from staff, and the second most from students, and the third most from faculty members. Student emails, they only ever sent me emails that were just to me. They didn't send me any mass emails or automated emails or group emails, which is not surprising. They just want to ask me some individual question. From staff, I got a lot of mass emails and emails that were just, and emails that were automated, but I also got some that were just to me. And from the faculty, I got those. That was the only type of email I got where it was a group email, like they emailed more than one person at the same time, basically. That's probably for committee work. We have to do committee work. Okay, so that is my stacked column chart. All right, next I want to show you guys how to make a histogram. So let's go back to the clean data sheet, and I'm going to make a histogram of thread length. So I'm going to select the column that I want a histogram of by clicking on the letter above it. And then I'm going to go to Insert, and then you just have to find the button that has the histogram. It's this one. And make sure you click histogram, not Pareto chart. I don't know what a Pareto chart is, but it looks weird to me. Okay, so click histogram. Now, once you have your histogram in, you can change things on it. Like, for example, you can put a title if you want to. Just keep double clicking it till it lets you edit it. And then more importantly, you can change the bins at the bottom. So let me see here. If you want to change the bin size or the number of bins, you just right click directly on those bin labels and then do Format Axis. And then over here, you can change it to bin width or number of bins. So I could put the bin width on 2, for example. Or I could change number of bins to 6, for example. And then it may end up giving you like a yucky kind of non-rounded bin endings. But that's okay. There's ways to change that if you need to. All right, so that was a histogram, and now let's do a scatter plot. So I'm gonna just click this back to automatic. Okay, so now I'm gonna do a scatter plot, and I'm gonna show you 2 numerical variables. So I will do, or quantitative variables rather. Let's do maybe num words and thread length. Okay, so I'm gonna select those 2 columns, G and H together. And then I'm gonna insert tab, and then the one that looks like dots, so scatter. Sometimes something goes wrong and you might get 2 colors of dots on here, and that means you actually selected something wrong. Let me see if I can try to show you like what it looks like when that happens. Yeah, so if you select things wrong, it might end up looking like this. I don't know if you guys saw what I did wrong just now when I inserted that, but I clicked G, I held down the control key, I did H1, and then I did H, and that was just wrong enough to make the wrong kind of chart. So you should only have one type of point on your scatter plot for now anyway. So I'm going to select G and H together, insert, scatter, scatter. Okay, so this is what your chart should look like, just one color of point. All right, and then for a scatter plot, because it doesn't label itself automatically, it is nice to put labels in. So if you want to do that, you can click on your chart, go to the chart design tab, and then go to add chart element, and then you can do axis titles, primary horizontal, and then do it again, axis titles, primary vertical. And then you yourself have to figure out which one is which and label them. So just click on the axis title and then double click it, and you can type over it. Looks like this one was just based on the numbers. They're going from 0 to 10. This would have been thread length. It's also always the column that was on the left. And then for the other one, the y-axis, I'll just double click on that. And this was num words. Okay. And then since I labeled those, I don't really need this title anymore, so I'll just delete that. So there's lots of options you can change about how these look. Okay, the next thing I want to do is show you how to do some percentile stuff, percentiles and percentile ranks. Let me move this chart down here. Okay, so over here, I'm going to X out of this format panel. Okay, so over here in column K, I'm going to put a couple more labels for things I want to calculate. So I'm going to calculate some percentiles, and I need to use one of these numerical variables, so I'll do num words, I guess. So let's calculate maybe the 25th percentile of num words, and then I'll do the 75th percentile of num words. Just to remind you what those mean, the 25th percentile is if I would sort the data set by num words, which actually it is sorted by num words right now. The 25th percentile would be the data value that is about 25% of the way through that list. So like somewhere around here, maybe. Just a rough visual estimate, so probably about 16. And then the 75th, the one that's 75% of the way through the list, so like around here somewhere, that would be the 75th percentile. Okay, so let me widen column K. All right, so over here in L8, I'm going to do the percentile formula. So it's equals percentile. Now you have two choices, either percentile.exe or percentile.inc. It's just two different ways of doing it that Excel has, and I never really explain in detail how they exactly work, but it doesn't matter too much. So I'll just do the first one. I'm going to hit, when you use the arrow keys to scroll up and down, then you can hit tab to insert it. So tab. All right, so now I need to select, see here it's giving me the tip array. That means a list. So that's where you select the list of data. All right, so I'm gonna click and drag from H1 down, or sorry, from H2 down to H26. Okay, and now this formula percentile has two arguments, so you need to put the array, in other words, a list of data, and then you have to put K. And what K is actually, that's the percentile that you want. So if we're doing the 25th percentile, you don't enter it as 25, you do 0.25. So after H2 colon H26, I do a comma that tells Excel I'm doing my second input, and then I'm going to do 0.025. Okay, close parentheses, hit enter, and we got 17.5, which, yeah, that was almost exactly where it was like pointing on the list, like right here. Looked like it was about 25% of the way down the column. So 17.5 makes sense to me. Let's try to do the same thing for 75th percentile. So equals percentile. I see the one is highlighted that I want, so I'm going to hit tab. Okay, now I'm going to select the data. So from H2 down to H26, put a comma, and now I want the 75th percentile, so I'll do 0.75. Close parentheses, hit enter. Okay, 97.5. I think 75% of the way down the list is somewhere around here, so that makes sense to me. Okay, so this is telling us that in the list of emails, the lowest 25% of emails, in other words, the shortest ones with the least words, had between 0 words and 17.5 words. And the second number here is telling us that in the list of emails, the shortest 75% of them had between 0 words and 97.5 words. And so on the flip side, that would mean the longest 25% of emails had more than 97.5 words. I'll explain it a little bit more with the box plot in a second. Okay, so now let's do percentile rank. I'm going to calculate the percentile rank. So percentile rank is you say, you give a particular data value and you ask how far through the list would this data value be if it were in the list. So for example, if I want to know how far through the list is a 6-word email, it's going to be a really low percentile rank, probably 0 or 1% maybe. But let's do an example where we use an email with 100 words. So I'm just going to label this over here, percentile rank of 100 words. Okay, and now the formula is not percentile, it's percent rank. So when you start typing PER, it's the third one down, percent rank, or the fourth one. You can use either of those two. I'll just do %rank.exe. So again, I have to select the data. So from H2 down to H26. And then I need to put a comma. And now the second argument here is the data value that you want to calculate the percentile rank of. So I'm going to put 100. Close parentheses, hit enter. Okay, and I got 0.755. That means that an email of 100 words would be approximately 75.5% of the way through that list in column H. Okay, which makes sense because it's close to the 75th percentile of 97 words. If you want to format that as a percentage, you can by coming over here to the Home tab, and then the little drop-down menu lets you change the format to % if you want to. Okay, last thing I want to show you how to do is make a box plot. So let's make a box plot for the words variable. So I click on the H above the column, and I go to insert, and then it's in the same place as histograms, but below box and whisker. So I'm going to click on that. So this is a vertical box plot, but it's just like really short, so it looks kind of squashed. You can just like lengthen it and make it a little skinnier if it helps you like interpret it. And you can, of course, change title or put like labels and things like that if you want to. So this is num words. Usually there's some number down here for like the number of box plot that it is that kind of doesn't have any meaning, so I'll just delete it. All right, so what's interesting here is we see 4 outliers. So there were apparently 4 emails that were way, way longer than the other ones. And if I look at my data here, yeah, it's true. These last 4 emails were a lot longer than the others. So those actually were classified as outliers by Excel. And then the other things that are going on here, the mean, this little X here is for the mean. It's all the way up at the top of the whisker, which is kind of wild. So these outliers affected the mean a whole lot. They dragged it way up there. The middle of the box here, that should be where the median is. That's 50. The top of the box is 97.5. The bottom of the box is 17.5. That means that the middle 50% of emails, were between 17.5 words long and 97.5 words long. If you want to interpret more stuff, the bottom whisker, make this longer so it's easier to see. The bottom whisker starts at 6, so that was the shortest email, and goes to 17.5. So that means the shortest 25% of emails were between 6 and 17.5 words long. So in other words, when I select the first 25% of this list over here, it's between 6 and 17.5. You can see visually that that is true. The top whisker went from 111 to 97.5. So that means the longest 25% of emails, not including the outliers. So it'd be these ones, right? Oh, sorry, where was it again? Oh, 97.5. 111 to 97.5. So only those two. Hold on a second. I just had to think for a second because I was thinking that that the outliers were excluded from the calculations, but if this top whisker is supposed to be the longest 25% of emails, not including the outliers, then that range from, sorry, it's hard to get right on it, that range from 97.5 to 111 only includes these 2 emails, whereas the lower 25% that we just looked at was these 6, so that wouldn't make sense. I think Excel must be including these outliers because that would be the same size for the upper 25%. I'm not sure how to think about how to feel about what Excel is doing there. It's not quite what I expected, but I guess I've kind of philosophically gone the route of let's not care too much exactly about how Excel is doing this. So I guess I can't really complain now. Anyway, that was my attempt to help you interpret this box plot. I think I got a little more confused than I expected. All right, so if there's anything else you want to know how to do in Excel, you guys can send me an email or talk to me before or after class or during office hours.